Welcome into our programming. Jon Gruden is out in Las Vegas. He has submitted his resignation 3 days after a Washington Post report exposed an email back in 2011 that he sent to Washington executive Bruce Allen describing DeMaurice Smith in racist language. And apparently that was the tip of the iceberg. For more on this story, we're joined now by Tom Pelissero and our NFL Network insider Ian Rapoport. Tom, what more can you tell us about how all this unfolded?
Omar, this really played out within the past couple of hours with the Las Vegas Raiders. Jon Gruden had had a variety of discussions over several days since Friday when the Wall Street Journal first published that email from 2011 about DeMaurice Smith. Then, this evening, within the past couple of hours, the New York Times published other emails that also had been provided by the league to the Las Vegas Raiders. At that point, it became clear to Jon Gruden that his time as the Raiders coach was over. My understanding was this was a conclusion that Jon Gruden came to himself. He decided to resign, met with owner Mark Davis about it this evening. Then within the past hour here, Jon Gruden met with his staff to let them know that he is out. At this point, we do not know who the Raiders' interim head coach is going to be. There are multiple former NFL head coaches on staff there. Obviously, there is a trickle-down effect throughout this team that is now going to be dealing with the fallout from Gruden's resignation and the publishing of these emails, which tonight in the New York Times included Gruden using homophobic language. Of course, Carl Nassib, the first out NFL player to appear in a regular season game, currently on the roster. There were remarks about women, among other things. It became too much for Jon Gruden to believe that he could stay as the Raiders coach. Jon Gruden, in a stunning development, out as Las Vegas Raiders coach tonight.
Yeah, and Tom, it was hard to believe that Jon Gruden could have continued after tonight. And from what I understand, the NFL actually sent over the contents of these emails to the Raiders on Friday, waiting for them to act, wanting to see how they would respond to the really disgusting emails sent by their coach, who, as of the time of the emails, was not actually their coach. At this point, he was working for ESPN. It was, of course, about a decade ago. The Raiders did not act, and then, of course, we saw the more emails published today, a couple hours ago by the New York Times, more disgusting language, more racist remarks and homophobic remarks from Jon Gruden. You mentioned Carl Nassib, the first out NFL player to play in a regular season game. How would Gruden have walked in the locker room and addressed his players with them knowing what he thinks of some of them and people who look like them? It's really hard to fathom him returning as Raiders coach. So Jon Gruden, after meeting with Mark Davis and a couple other key members of the organization, decides that his time is over as the Raiders head coach. You mentioned some interim potential options. Gus Bradley, of course, spent several years as head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. He is among the top options for the Raiders as they try to figure out how to move forward from here.
Tom, Jon Gruden said that he addressed his team on Friday morning before that Wall Street Journal article was even published. It's hard to imagine, as you mentioned, now that this New York Times article has been out, that he could have continued at that point. I guess the question I have is, do you know how forthright he was in that meeting on Friday to get so much support yesterday, post-game, when the Raiders met with the media after their loss against the Chicago Bears?
Omar, what we know are these statements from Jon Gruden publicly were specifically addressing a single email from 2011 about DeMaurice Smith. He said repeatedly to multiple media outlets and in his post-game press conference on Sunday that he does not have a racist bone in his body, that he meant nothing by the phrase that he used, even though certainly that has been a phrase that has been a dog whistle for a long time. That is what he addressed with his team. That is what he addressed publicly. But as Ian mentioned, the Raiders also had these additional emails. Jon Gruden was aware that the team had additional emails in which he used a homophobic term to describe NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell. He used a homophobic language to describe others. Again, you had a pattern at a time that Jon Gruden was employed by ESPN. He was not an NFL head coach. He was not employed by a club. It was the fact that these emails, the contents of them, became public, and that suddenly everyone on his team, everyone within the league, many of whom other head coaches have been texting me here in the past hour since that news broke about Jon Gruden resigning as the Raiders head coach. So many questions about someone that so many in the league feel that they know well, certainly somebody with a long history in the NFL. But again, it got to the point that Jon Gruden believed, based on what had come out publicly, based on what everyone knew, he no longer could lead the Las Vegas Raiders. That is why within the past couple of hours here, he met with owner Mark Davis, then he met with the staff to inform all of them that he planned to resign as the Raiders head coach. That is now done, official. Gruden is out.
Yeah, and of course, Tom, the Las Vegas Raiders organization, formerly the Oakland Raiders organization, has been really one of the pillars of diversity and advancement over the course of the past several decades. They've had a woman essentially as the right hand to the owner in Amy Trask. They have promoted several black coaches at a time when many teams did not. They've had a Hispanic head coach. This has been a diverse organization that has promoted diversity. And the fact that over the past several hours and several days, Mark Davis had to answer questions about a coach who wrote many racist things in emails, homophobic things in emails, and this is not what the Raiders have stood for. We have not yet really heard publicly very much from Mark Davis. I'll be curious when he does speak about the values that this organization has stood for, Steve, and obviously completely opposite of everything that we've learned about Jon Gruden over the past couple of days.
We're now joined by Steve Wyche, senior reporter here at NFL Network. Steve, what do you make of this move by Jon Gruden to resign?
Well, I mean, he had to make the move. And I'm glad Ian just said what he said, because the Raiders have nothing to do with this other than the fact that they employed him well after these emails were sent. The big questions, and the something that now we've got a bigger picture, right? So now we have emails that were discovered as part of a larger investigation into the workplace behavior of the Washington football team. And guys, we're all human. Jon Gruden is not sending those emails randomly. He sent them to Bruce Allen, who he clearly felt comfortable with saying these things. Bruce Allen was the president of the Washington football team at this time. So, you know, I think it's a question of someone as a person of color sitting here, like, what made him feel so comfortable in saying these things? Now, we've heard Jon Gruden say he doesn't have a racist bone in his body. My interactions with him have always been great. My interactions with a lot of people who don't look with me are often great, and then behind the scenes, they say something negatively. Here, Jon Gruden got caught. The receipts caught up to him. It cost him his job, and again, it's a shame that the Raiders are being brought into this, but now Jon Gruden is having to pay the piper because, as you guys said, there's no way he could lead a football team with those remarks that were made public.
And Steve, DeMaurice Smith, who was the target of the original Jon Gruden email that was published on Friday, put out a statement via a Twitter thread, and it concluded he appreciated that Gruden reached out to him, told him we'll connect soon, but make no mistake, the news is not about what is said in our private conversation, but what else is said by people who never thought they would be exposed and how they are going to be held to account. That is one strong lesson for everyone in the NFL here. These were personal emails by Jon Gruden that he sent at a time he was not employed in the NFL, but they are the reason now that Jon Gruden has resigned and is out as the Raiders coach.